Hey, welcome back to Getting On to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship. I am excited to talk about something that's, I know, making a lot of noise and getting a lot of attention. And we're talking about some things around electric vehicles. And while the name Elon Musk may come up quite a bit, there's actually a lot of folks that are super involved in this space. And I'm really excited to be joined by Kenneth Boyer, who combines a lifelong love of cars and engineering with a career focused on management and supply chain. He's the Fisher Designated Professor of Operations and Business Analytics at the Fisher College of Business, Ohio State University. He was co-editor-in-chief of the Journal of Operations Management and served on the faculty of Michigan State and DePaul universities. I could go on and on with the bio, but importantly for this conversation, he has a great book that has just come out. It's called The Electric Vehicle Revolution, 5 Visionaries Leading the Charge. Ken, thank you so much for joining us on the program.
Thank you so much for having me, Shalom.
Absolutely. So I have to ask, just to kick this off, how did you get interested in this topic?
Well, so I've liked cars my whole life, but the short version of the longer story is I had a friend who was co-founding provost of a university in Vietnam, which led me to do a sabbatical in Vietnam, which led me to my first visionary who founded a car company in Vietnam.
Wild. That's amazing. And as I understand it, you live in Columbus, Ohio, and you drive a Tesla Model 3. Is that right?
Absolutely.
That's wild. Okay, so let's dive into this. I know this is both a hobby for you, but also you are quite literally the subject matter expert on this topic. So who's leading the charge in the electric vehicle revolution?
Well, it's interesting because like in a revolution, battles go back and forth. So I have an entire chapter on Elon Musk and Tesla, and I call them Muskla together because many people conflate Musk with all of Tesla. There are actually 5 founders of Tesla. So Tesla and Musk made it possible. They showed that we can have an electric car that's better than a gas car. But my book has 4 other visionaries. So there's Mary Barra, who's the CEO of General Motors. They're trying like crazy to take the world electric. Jim DeLuca was the head of all manufacturing for General Motors before he retired in 2016. He got recruited to go to Vietnam and start a car company for Pham Nhat Vuong, who is the richest man in Vietnam. They've started a car company that didn't exist until 2017. They made gas cars. And in 2021, they said, we're going to go all electric. And they're trying to come to America. And then I've got one more visionary, Rob Hansen, I lost track, is the founder of a company called Monolith Materials, which makes carbon black, which is, long story short, like soot. It's basically a form of dried carbon that goes into every automobile tire on the planet. So Rob Hansen founded a company that's making carbon black, lower emissions, lower cost, could be a world-changing company.
That's awesome. Fantastic. So the big question everybody's asking is, can electric vehicles be affordable to the mass market and better for the environment?
And the short answer is absolutely. It depends on what you put in them. So the degree of renewable power that goes into them greatly affects what comes out the tailpipe. They're carbon-free emissions, but how you generate that power matters. So in states like Idaho, where we have a lot of renewable power, the cars are greener. But across the board, electricity is cheaper than gasoline. So in a more perfect world, electric cars offer us cheaper, greener transportation, and they can be competitive or lower cost and lower maintenance than existing cars. Problem is, they're not quite there yet because many of the car companies are trying to sell expensive luxury cars because that's what Tesla did.
Yeah, interesting. And I have to ask, are we trading one problem, the use of fossil fuels, for another, the use of rare earth metals for batteries? How do you feel about that?
That's complicated. It requires a little bit of, pun intended, digging. Yes, there are rare earth metals that are hard to come by. China controls almost the entire supply chain for these rare earth metals, so including lithium, manganese, copper, cobalt. but we can do better. And so, long story short, I believe we need to open mines in the US, Europe, other places, but we need to keep an eye on the mines because mines are a very dirty affair and have been known to mistreat workers. If we manage them right, we can extract these materials, but we also have to create a circular economy. So in the power sources chapter of my book, I talk about companies that are trying to recycle the metals used in these batteries. So companies like Serba Solutions and Redwood Materials. If we do these things better, we can make cars less damaging to the planet, less damaging to people. But there's a lot of ifs in that equation.
Yeah, I'm chatting with Kenneth Boyer, who, again, has quite literally written the book. It's called The Electric Vehicle Revolution, 5 Visionaries Leading the Charge. I know you recently visited Vietnam to study VinFast's rise, and I know you have become quite the expert on this topic. Just before we cut to break, can you tell us how existing automakers are and can fend off the challenge from Chinese companies?
Number one, they've got to make an affordable car. Henry Ford created the modern industry by offering a low-cost Model T, reduced the price of the car from 1909 to 1924 by a factor of 75%. The automakers have to make an affordable car that the average person can buy. They've been resisting it, but Jim Farley, the CEO of Ford, fairly recently said, we've got a skunk works. We're trying to figure out how to make that low-cost car.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I want to continue our conversation when we come back after a quick break here and Get Down to Business. Don't touch that dial. Hey, welcome back to Get Down to Business, the show all about small business jobs and entrepreneurship, and a conversation that is very, very much part of what I'm hearing on the streets is everybody's talking about electric vehicles. And I am excited to bring on the subject matter expert, Kenneth Boyer, who has written the book, The Electric Vehicle Revolution, 5 Visionaries Leading the Charge. Again, he lives in Columbus, Ohio, currently drives a Tesla Model 3, but I know has been doing a ton of research on this topic. Again, welcome back. And I am really curious about the future of electric vehicles and how technology is adapting and improving. I guess, let me go there. Is technology improving to make electric vehicles more palatable?
Absolutely, Shalom. What a lot of people don't realize is the ability of batteries to store power and the cost of batteries has come down a lot by an order of magnitude over the last 5 to 10 years. And companies around the world are trying to figure out how to make better batteries to store power in cars from renewable sources. Another technology that I think is overhyped is self-driving. Elon Musk has been known to make a few inflated claims, and he talks about full self-driving. That's a great concept, but it has to be extraordinarily safe because if a machine causes a death, we look at it differently than if a human being does.
Yeah, that's an important point. And again, folks are talking about Elon Musk in a lot of different ways. And as you said earlier in this conversation, a lot of folks, sort of put him and Tesla in just sort of the same sentence. But I know there's a lot of research and a lot of development that's happening, and it's good to hear that there's, again, a lot of improvements that are being made. So let's talk about government. Let's talk about government and the role that government plays, both U.S. government, but also around the world in the electric vehicle revolution. What are you keeping track of?
Well, so I'll very quickly walk you through 4 situations. China. Starting 20 years ago, China had large moves, subsidies, incentives, ways that made electric vehicles attractive to customers. Full stop, they're ahead of everybody in the world, except for maybe Norway, which did much of the same thing, led in part by the lead singer for a-ha, which is a band from the 80s for those of the Gen X generation. So Norway, 90% of the sales last year were electric. Europe is coming along, and America, but both Europe and America are democracies where we have a lot of political discussion about electric vehicles. The election coming up in November has a lot to do with what our future looks like. So I call it in my book, willingness to commit. When governments get behind something, usually consumers will follow. It's a question of how they set it up. But full stop, the election, who wins the presidential election in the fall makes a big difference.
No question about it on so many topics, but electric vehicles, I know, is something that folks are very, very curious about. I know that there's a lot of related businesses that I know many of our listeners I know are involved in. And so this is an important conversation to have, and it's an important topic to follow. But the good news is that folks can follow you and find your book to learn more about all the research that you've been doing. So how can we get in touch, and how can we find your book?
So you can look me up at Ohio State, Ken Boyer, Ohio State. You'll find me, Ken Boyer, LinkedIn. Or you can go to Amazon. My book is The Electric Vehicle Revolution, 5 Visionaries Leading the Charge. Or finally, I have a website, gearschange.com. And that's because the gears of change, if you do them right, willingness to commit, ability to profit, and transform the supply network, we can change the world. But if any of those gears doesn't work, you got to jam.
I like it. It's good stuff. Ken Boyer, thank you so much for sharing your expertise with our listeners. That's a wrap for us this week on Get Down to Business, the show all about small business, jobs, and entrepreneurship. As always, you can download all of our shows on my website, syklein.com, or of course, subscribe, rate, review, and share on your favorite podcast app. Just search for Get Down to Business. We are powered by our good friend Tom Mirabali for all of your health insurance needs. Check out healthplanchicago.com. To success, let's get down to business.